Hi, this is Shane Smythe from Marketing Cloud Mojo. Today we'll be talking about Journey Builder basics. We'll be going through a simple example of how to create a journey. We'll be going through what the activities are, the settings, some best practices, and overall what do you do inside a Journey Builder and what you don't. So let's jump right into it. You can see that we're in the overview screen. We're going to navigate to Journey Builder. So Journey Builder is where it all comes together. We've been talking about content, data extensions, attribute groups, and a few other pieces of content throughout this series so far, but Journey Builder is where all those pieces come together and we start to get into multi-channel journeys. This is where we're able to take our data that we've collected and target the individuals based on the information we have about them and show them personalized messages. So you can see here on the Journey Builder screen that we don't have any journeys in this instance. I want to quickly explain some of the components on here. You can see on the left-hand side, we have the ability to use folders and organize our journeys as we start to grow our experience inside of Journey Builder. This is a relatively new feature and I love it. So I'm glad they have this in here now. On the right-hand side, we have goals. And in the center, we have where all of our journeys will show along with their statuses of whether they're active, what version they're on, and the performance of that journey. On the top right corner, you see Create New Journey. We have two options. We have Create from Scratch and Create from a Template. I'm going to show you the templates, but what we're actually going to do is we're going to create from scratch because that is how you're going to do it 95% of the time. So going to the templates, we can see that we have a couple of advanced, simple, and intermediate journeys here that are pre-built for us. This right here is going to expand, and I've also heard from Marketing Cloud that they're probably going to let partners start building their own templates here very, very soon. So we're going to click on this Welcome Journey with Engagement. It's going to pop up a module over here that's going to show you quickly some of the high-level information here. You can even click on this link and it gives you some pretty good information. And in the center, you see what a journey could look like. We're not going to go too much into this specific one because we're actually going to build this ourselves in a second. So before we jump too far into Journey Builder, I want to give you guys an analogy. And this is actually one that I heard recently from a friend. Journey Builder is like the cookies at the end of a production day. There's all of this work that goes into mixing the batter and cooking it and getting all the ingredients perfectly right. And at the end of the day, you have these nice, juicy cookies. Journey Builder is like the cookie. It seems simple and it's very pretty and flashy, but there's a lot of work that goes into building journeys. We're not going to get too much into that in the meat of that today, so we're going to go basics only. But we'll have follow-ups where we dig more into the details of how do we get a production-ready journey going. So let's start with the basics though. So we'll get into Journey Builder. In here, you can see that on the left-hand side, you have all of your activities and your sources. In the center, you have your canvas. In the top row up here, you have all the things you can do with your journey. So some of the modifications and settings up there. So let's start on the left-hand side. You have two main sections. You have your entry sources and you have your activities. Your entry sources are where people are going to enter the journey. So think of a journey as a consolidated flow or interaction with a customer. So a good example would be a welcome series. The person signs up and they're going to get an email right away and they'll probably get a couple follow-ups and you want to welcome them into your program. It could be a week, it could be a 5-week program, depends on the client or the use case there, but that would be one consolidated flow. You could also have examples of order confirmation, abandoned cart. You could be doing something like re-nurturing programs. Those are all consolidated experiences with your customer. That's the definition of a journey inside of Marketing Cloud. So a lot of the times, not all the times, your use case is going to be using the data extension entry source because that's where most of your data will live. It's also becoming more and more common to have Salesforce data as your entry source. We'll go a little bit into this in a second here, but that will mostly be for a later topic. You also have API events, which is also a very common use case for triggered journeys. We're going to start with our entry source of data extension because that's the simplest to go through. So we're going to drag this over, and this is what I love about Journey Builder. It's very easy to use. You drag it over. Now we have this entry source inside of our journey here. Before we get any further, I'm actually going to name this. One of the things you should know, this is not Content Builder where everything automatically saves for you. you have to click the save button, otherwise you will lose your progress. So save often and save frequently, otherwise you may click back on accident and you'll lose all the work you did. So I'm going to click in here, and let's say we're going to do a welcome journey. So we're going to click enter and then click save. So now you have this pop-up right here. You have the ability to organize this if you wanted to. So I could, maybe create a new folder and then maybe create a welcome series folder or a loyalty folder and then drop this journey in there. We're just going to keep this in the root right now. So we'll go back up to journeys, and you can now see that we have one journey in here with a status of draft and no performance information because we haven't started it yet. So you also have the ability to click view version dashboard, which shows the versions in here. This is extremely helpful when you have a journey live for multiple months and multiple versions. You can kind of see where people are at in the status, and as you publish new versions, you will start to see this become more and more valuable. We'll probably talk a little bit about versioning and some of the pieces there, maybe a little bit in this video, but definitely later on in other videos. So we're going to click on welcome journey again. We'll pop back in where we left off. So now we're going to collapse this to get this out of the way, and we'll show just activities right now. Activities are all the things that happen inside of Journey Builder. These are all the messages, these are all the flow control components, and all the things you can update while you're in a journey. So we're doing a welcome journey here. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to send them an email. We want them to receive an email right away. So we're going to take this email module here, and we're going to drag this over. And I'm going to drag it in front of the wait period. One of Marketing Cloud's, and there are many best practices on the Marketing Cloud Journey Builder front, but one of the best practices is not to have a wait period in the beginning of your journey. You want to have an activity in the beginning of it. This helps on performance. There's a lot of things we'll go into later about performance. So the first thing we want to do is we want to have this email. And I've created a couple of really complicated emails. Not really, they're super simple. But I've created a series of blank emails to kind of simulate what a welcome series could look like from a flow perspective. So we're going to have email number 1. And once we click that, we can go through the message configuration. This is where you do your normal send configuration. We went through this before. Very simple. We check the send classification, and you make sure there's a subject line here. And then once you have all that delivery and advanced options created here, you can go back to the summary, preview everything, and then when you click done, it will turn from gray to green. So this is when you know it's been populated. So let's say that we sent this first email. In our next interaction, we'll be able to determine if the person is engaged with this email or not. So this is where the power of Journey Builder comes in. Right now, we're just doing a single email. It's not super powerful. When we start layering in engagement and decisions based on customer data, that's when it becomes powerful. So we're going to drag over an engagement split. We're going to put this engagement split after our wait period. So now what we have is we have email 1. We're going to wait a day. And actually, let's go in here and let's say we're going to give them 2 days to open this email. And then we want to check their engagement. And when we click in this engagement split, it's going to open up a module on the left-hand side. And this is a very common way of everything kind of popping up on the left-hand side from a Journey Builder perspective. They're going to select a message to monitor. So right now we only have one email in the flow, so it's going to know exactly what we want here. And we're going to click Message Metrics, and we're going to tell it what to check engagement on. So there are 3 options here. You'll most commonly use opens or clicks. They're for different reasons. If you want to check to see if the person read your message, you use open. If you want to know if they clicked on a specific link or in a link in general, you can click this clicks button. So if I click this, you can see that we have a lot of default text in here, so it's not a lot of good content, but you can say, no, I don't want to check all of them. I don't want to just check this one button right here that was checked. And you can decide to put people down the top or bottom path based upon this one click. But for this, we're just going to do open. So if they opened, they'll go down the yes path. If they did not open, they'll go down the no path. And so maybe we want to change our content just slightly based upon if they opened or not. So let's say that if they opened, we want to continue down the path of give them more information about a potential loyalty program that we want them to sign up for. And if they did not, we'll give them some more basic information and maybe add a couple of reasons why they should be engaged. And maybe change our subject line a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag over 2 more messages here. And that interaction right there you just saw me do is something that's very common inside of Marketing Cloud and Journey Builder is these wait periods starting to duplicate up against each other. So you just got to click X on them and delete them. You are required to have them in specific locations in the journey. So you can see that this one doesn't have a delete button like some of the other ones because you always need a wait period at this location at the very end of your journey. So we're going to click back into this email. I'm going to quickly add some of these A and B versions. Okay, so from here we're sending email number 1, we're waiting 2 days to see if they open the email, and then we check to see if they've opened the email, and then we're going to send them version A and version B. And at the very end of this, we have a version 3. So we've checked their engagement, and we want our entire audience to receive email number 3 regardless of whether they have engaged or not. Right now you can't do this because the flows are split, but we have this fancy little join over here, and so what we're going to do is we're going to put it on the bottom path. And what you do is you take this module and you drag it up to the top path, and it joins the 2 of them together. Because this is now a single interaction again, or a single path, we're able to drag over this last email and configure it with our email number 3. Okay, so I'm going to save, and now we have a fairly basic flow here. We have all the configuration items in on this canvas minus the entry event here. This illustrates some of the capabilities we have. Some other ones I want to quickly point out are the wait by durations, wait by attribute, wait until date. These are really, really powerful, especially with specific use cases. If you want to wait until a specific campaign date starts, you can pull this module in. And I'm just going to plop it right here so I can show you guys. You can see that you're able to specify the date and time and zip code, or sorry, I should say time zone, of when you want people to wait in this period until that specific date, and then they will progress. And then wait by attribute means you can actually wait by a specific column inside of your data extension or your object in Salesforce in that specific wait period, and then they'll progress after they meet that date. Some other really common ones and really powerful ones are decision splits. Decision splits allow you to add multiple paths based upon information. So if we had a welcome series in here and we wanted to be able to split people by, let's say, a region, I'm not sure you do that in real life, but if we wanted to do that, we would be able to add multiple paths based on region here and use our data to actually modify where they go down their path. So before I do that, I'm going to add an entry source because that's required in this portion of the journey here. So we've created a couple of data extensions up to this point, so we're going to use some of that existing information. And as we go into this, I'm kind of going to speak a little bit about some best practices here. So we have our all context data extension. This all context data extension has everyone, and it has all people throughout history. It's not just these new people. You can see that I've also created a filter data extension called new contacts. So I'm going to go into our Email Studio app over here, and I have multiple tabs open so you can kind of see me toggle back and forth here. You can see that all contacts and new contacts are standard data extensions in here. We have a filter data extension for new contacts. You can see that I have a filter criteria of created date is greater than today minus 1. Basically meaning that a person was entered into the data extension today at some point. That would qualify them to enter this data extension here. So you can see we have a subset of our total 7 people. We have 3 people who were created today. So that makes a lot of sense. So what are some of the pros and cons of using a standard data extension like all contacts and a filter data extension like the new contacts? So you can see inside of Journey Builder, I'm able to select both. So I'm going to start with all contacts. If I choose all contacts, I have the ability to come down here and click filter contacts, and I could do a similar contact a similar filter for the contacts that you see in new contacts. So I could come down here and say, created date is after today, today -1, and that would allow you to do the same thing. This is not how you do it in most cases though. So inside of Journey Builder, one of the best practices for performance perspective is to do a lot of the heavy filtering inside of a normal data extension flow. So inside of filters or queries. This helps on the processing time inside of Journey Builder, so you're able to have a throughput of more individuals. So if we're talking about 50,000 people or maybe even 100,000 people, you doing it this way as an entry event with a filter on it would be okay, and you wouldn't see any performance issues unless you had multiple journeys doing the same thing. But it's always good to be in a best practice mindset as you're building these journeys. So doing a lot of the filtering beforehand and then entering those as your entry source is the best practice. So because of that, I'm going to cancel out of this. And I'm going to click back into this entry source. And I'm going to use this pre-filtered data extension. So everyone in this data extension should enter the journey. So I don't need to filter any of the contacts that are coming into this new contacts data extension. So I'm going to go to summary, and you can see that this is the data extension. There's no filter in it right now. And when I click done, I'm going to save this real quick so that nothing goes wrong. And you can see that it now says the new contacts, and it shows the count of the individuals. So because we have this information in here now, when we go to decision split, we're going to see a couple different types of data. So I'll explain those in a second, but let's open up path 1. You're now going to see contact data versus journey data. So a quick mention here. Journey data is a snapshot of your information in the data extension on time of entry. Contact data is real time, pulled from your data extension. So a good example is that if for some reason you have a data extension and that information is changing based on users' performance or maybe information we have about them, if you use journey data, it's going to be a snapshot in time from when they enter. And if the journey is a month long and you're looking at the data from journey data a month into this journey, it's going to be a month-old data. If you're using contact data for a decision split, it will be real time. So if you're using data that is not going to change, like state, most likely won't change, you could use journey data, but a lot of the times you want to use contact data to make sure that it's updated. You also want to make sure that your entry data extension is in an attribute group if you want to use contact data. So you can see that when I click contact data, it's going to show all of our attribute groups. So I have Contact Builder open to illustrate this. You can see all these attribute groups right here that I'm seeing in this data designer view are also here in the contact data view as well. You can also see that we have an all contacts down here in our attribute group, and we have one right here as well. And as we dig into them, you can see that it's going to show you the same view, but the same type of data, but in a different view. So you can see we have all contacts and new contacts once we pop into that attribute group, and you can see the same thing here. And as we dig into each of these, you can see now this all contacts data extension is related to our orders data extension. So you can start to see how you can use these decision splits to influence the path that they go down. So we're going to do something super simple. We're going to say state is equal to mn. Done. And let's say we want to choose this to mn state. And for now, we're just going to have all the remainder go down a different path. So we'll click done, and there we go. We have a decision split that's going to put down everyone who's Minnesota at the top, and everyone else right now is not going to receive any of the emails. And in the future, we might build this out and drag some emails down here and have a different path. But for now, we'll keep this super simple. So that's another really powerful activity inside of the tool belt of Journey Builder. We also have random split, which is exactly what it says here. We have the ability to randomly split people down different paths. This is kind of used traditionally, it seems like, as a pseudo A/B test to be able to test different pieces of content. It's not a true A/B test because there's no ability to measure and win off of it, but it is used in that fashion. We're going to skip over Interaction Studio for a later date. Contact updates is also a really powerful one. This allows you to modify data extensions based upon things that are happening in Journey Builder. This is more of an advanced use case, but you guys can dig into that separately, and we'll probably go into it in a later video. The very last one I want to touch on real quick is the Sales and Service Cloud. These are super powerful. If you have Marketing Cloud integrated with Sales or Service Cloud, and you have the connector valid, and you have synchronized data extensions set up, you're able to use these activities to influence information inside of Sales Cloud. So a really good example here is that at the very end of this welcome journey, let's say we wanted to update our contact record to say the flag of yes, they've completed their welcome series is true, and that means that we're able to market to them for this loyalty program in our customer service. You could come in here and you could identify what contacts you want to be updated, what fields need to be mapped, what values need to be changed. So it is super powerful. This is more of an advanced functionality here, so we'll go into this later. But that is an option. Okay, so now we've gone through most of the examples of what's available on the left-hand side. There are a few other activities that aren't showing right now. So you see mobile push, inbox, email. There also is the ability to have SMS ads in here as well, and a few other ones that can be turned on, or custom ones can be added here as well. We'll probably have a couple of videos on push and SMS as we grow the channel here. So let's go up to the top. This top is important because it gives you advanced functionality to be able to measure how your journey is doing or exit people at specific locations. So let's say, for instance, that we wanted a goal of 10 people going down a specific path. We could, in theory, create a goal that used your contact data to measure how many people were on specific paths, and you could use that from a goal metric standpoint. And an exit criteria is the ability to remove people from the Journey Builder flow based upon specific attributes they have. So for instance, if your contact, for whatever reason, unsubscribed at the last minute, you could exit them from the journey. Or if your contact decided they didn't want to be contacted anymore, or they closed their account, we could exit them from the journey as well at that point in time. The very last spot here I want to talk about is the settings tab, because this is always what gets missed before a journey is launched. So I'm going to remove this. You go into settings, you have journey settings. You need to specify the re-entry mode. So you have the ability to have people enter once, anytime, or only after exiting. A lot of times you're going to do no re-entry. We want people to just come in here once and be done with it. They don't want to come into the welcome series multiple times, but maybe you have an abandoned cart series. You would have the ability to do re-entry anytime or re-entry only after exiting, and you could push these people through a abandoned cart multiple times throughout their life cycle, but only after they exited. So now we're just going to keep no re-entry. There are also some default email address and mobile numbers down here. These get pre-populated based upon your entry source, so you can see that it's selected email address or email for us, which is the value that's in our new contacts data extension. So once we have that, we can click done. Before I do that though, there's this data tab, and you'll see that it has information about our entry source here. And I'm going to click save. Now we have most of the foundation work set up. The last thing we need to do is we need to schedule our journey. And once we click the schedule button, we're going to have this pop-up of 3 options of scheduling types. You have the ability to run once. So if you're doing a campaign-based journey where maybe this is a one-time run and it's going to run for 3 months with a specific set of individuals and no other individuals are going to be added after you start it, run once is a good option. If you have a welcome series, you're going to want to do reoccurring or automation because you want people to continually be added to your journey. Reoccurring is very simple. Once you click it, you just tell it when you want the schedule to run and pick up new entry sources. And so maybe you want to do this hourly or daily. You can choose that. You can tell how many occurrences or for it never to end. So this is a fairly common one. The other option is for us to discard this and go back to schedule. You can do automation. Automation is a little more of advanced functionality here. It does a lot of what reoccurring does, but it gives you the flexibility to tell Automation Studio when to run it versus Journey Builder to run it. So I'm not going to go too much into that. We'll probably go into it later, but that is an option for more advanced use cases. So we're going to do reoccurring, and we're going to do let's say we're going to do hourly, and we're going to check this every hour, and it's never going to end. We'll start it, let's say tomorrow, and we're going to specify a contact evaluation here. So either it's going to check all new records or it's going to check all records. So most of the time you're going to want to choose evaluate new records only, and you're going to want to choose only new records after Journey Builder activation, unless you have a specific reason to choose all in file or evaluate all. It really depends on the use case here. There's some really good documentation on this topic in the help and training I'll show you in a minute, but we're going to click summary. And once we have all this information here, you can save it, and then you'll notice a couple of buttons up here that are actually becoming more and more useful and powerful. They used to have a hit or miss functionality here, but they're getting better now. So we can click validate, and this is going to make sure that all the steps in our process are working correctly, they have valid piece of information, subject lines are filled out, we have an entry source, date fields are correct. And once this validates, we'll be able to give the green thumbs up here of no errors detected. And then once that's done, you'll notice that the test button is now no longer grayed out. Okay, so at this point, we would be able to activate it. So once we activate it, it's going to give us a summary here. We can click activate, and then we would be good to go. So a couple of tips and tricks here. So I have a couple of documents open that I wanted to go through. The first one is our journey and contact data that we briefly talked about. This gives you some comparisons here. It also gives you some good examples down below, some considerations. So I would encourage you to go here. There are really good pieces of information that's using data in Journey Builder section of their help and documentation. I would encourage you guys to go here. There's some really good examples around decision splits and entry sources that actually spell out really good use cases of when to use and when not to use. It even goes into personalization inside of Journey Builder, because this has an effect of how you use personalization in your emails when it comes to journey data versus contact data. So investigate some of the documentation here. And then on this optimized Journey Builder performance, it goes through some of the best practices here. So like they say at the very top here, you can get up to a 2 million sends per hour per tenant ability if you follow these guidelines. Just some quick high level stuff here though. If you use multiple journeys against one data extension, that hurts your performance quite a bit. So it's a best practice to have one data extension per journey. So we wouldn't use 5 journeys against all contacts. We would create either subsets of filter data extensions or their own standard data extensions with different data sets in there. Okay, that was a simple walkthrough of Journey Builder and a basic scenario of how to set up Journey Builder and a welcome series. Thanks for watching. We're going to have more on Journey Builder. Subscribe and like if you enjoyed it, and let us know what content you want to receive on this channel.